what does this look like? What does growth in prayer look like? What does growth in the Christian life look like? Well, everybody's a little bit different. And so on the one hand, I used to really resist this. I would say, I don't like all those things. I don't like the this stage and that stage and the other stage. And it makes people want to say, like, what stage am I in? Am I in 10th grade? Am I a 10th grade Christian? Or like, what am I? And then, we mark all these things off. And I was like, no, I don't like that. And so I really resisted that for a while. But then I thought, I turned the question around a little bit. Somebody said, well, you meet with a lot of people. I mean, I probably meet with like 100 people for spiritual direction. Of those 100 people, is everybody in the same place? Well, no, everybody's not in the same place. Okay, well, like who's more beginner, who's more intermediate, and who's more advanced? Well, I have an answer for that. I have a sense of who's a little bit more at the beginning, who's more intermediate, who's more advanced. Well, how did you decide that? Okay, so now I backed myself into the traditional categories of the spiritual journey in spite of myself. So anyway, the point that I want you to take from this is I'm going to talk about some of the stages of the spiritual life is not to get stuck on it. It's not like fifth grade and I failed fifth grade and I had to repeat it. It just doesn't move like that. And so we should be careful not to say, well, I'm, whatever, this grade, I'm 3.5, or something like that. Whatever, it doesn't matter. Because the reality is there's actually kind of overlapping dimensions. There's a way in which I'm advanced. There's a way in which I'm a beginner. There's an area of my life that's more intermediate. So there's kind of some overlapping stuff going on. But just to get a general sense of that progression, I think it's worthwhile to have some notion of how things move. And we can describe that, and the spiritual tradition has described that. So obviously that's a hobbit, and that is the culmination of the spiritual life when you become a hobbit. No, anyway, that's meant to indicate the journey that we engage on a journey. We engage on a great adventure, really, and that's why it's also useful just to be on the journey. There's something exciting about the middle of the Lord of the Rings movies. It's not just the end that's exciting. It's not just arrival that's exciting. It's exciting along the way, and so we shouldn't resent or regret being on the way. There's no shortcuts. We only make it through the journey by staying on the journey, and it happens over time, and it happens in the Lord's time. It seems that if you map St. Therese's life onto the mansions, she probably entered the fourth mansion at like age 4, right? So we're all behind. I mean, but who cares, right? So God knows how long we're going to live, and he knows how long he needs to move us along this path. And we can really trust him that he has a purpose to all of it. And, St. Therese had her own purpose. And part of that was preserving the grace of childlikeness. And the fact that she died at 24 was part of how God preserved that grace of childlikeness. She was a little closer to it than than I am. Maybe you all are a little closer to that. So in any event, it's a journey, and we shouldn't resent the journey. But I also want to tie this together. If we look at the pews in our parishes, and this is some work that was done by Sherry Waddell in her kind of groundbreaking I'd say sort of monumental. It was really a huge step that we all took together in her forming intentional disciples, and she coined that term, intentional discipleship. Now, the term is slightly problematic. Is there such a thing as non-intentional discipleship? Like, what does that mean exactly? Is there such a thing as a disciple who's not intentional? Well, then they're not a disciple. But anyway, she was trying to give people the benefit of the doubt that in some way people that show up at church are disciples, but there's also some way that they're not disciples. And so she created this phrase, intentional discipleship, to try and distinguish those people who are just Sunday mass goers from people who are really all in. And that's how she describes it. When the apostles dropped their nets and followed Jesus, it says that about James and John. They left their nets and their father, and they followed after Jesus. It's like, see ya, pops. We're heading on the road. And I don't know what Zebedee, was doing there. Hey guys, where are you going? I can't handle this net on my own. So when they dropped their nets, and And I don't know if, I don't know where you are on this journey. Have you really dropped your nets and followed Christ? Are you all in? Have you really decided that come hell or high water, you're a Christian and you're stuck with him and he's stuck with you, and you're gonna ride it out to martyrdom? Now, maybe you look at some of the tortures that the martyrs go through and you go, well, like I'm mostly in. I'm mostly in. I don't know that I'm ready to be buried up to my neck and eaten alive by ants. I'm not. I may not be there, but I'm mostly. Anyway,